Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satgurum Pranatosmyaham. Upadhi. The word upa means near, and dhi means to transfer. Therefore, when we use this word upadhi, it is that because of its proximity, it has as though transferred its attributes to something else. And so this consequently creates a false understanding, such as we take a crystal, and the crystal being clear, crystal clear the crystal is, when you put a rose or you put a color behind it. For instance, if I had a bottle or whatever, a Coca-Cola bottle or a clear crystal, and it's a very big crystal, and I put a very big sheet of red cloth behind it, then when you look at it from that standpoint, the crystal, which is clear, it looks to you like it is contaminated by this color of the red. And thus, when I asked, describe this crystal for me, please, you will innocently describe it. It is red, and it has patterns, and it has so on. This is because of the upadhi, which as though transfers its attributes onto the substratum, which we call upahita. Upahita means that which as though takes on the attributes of something else. Consequently, this produces a certain amount of conclusions that are false, that are not keeping with reality, and so you then act accordingly. Now, this upadhi, we said that Ishvara, so this is the Vedantic definition of God, cause of the universe, because it is the cause. So Ishvara is nothing but Brahman with Maya upadhi. Another way to say it is Ishvara, that means God, is nothing but Brahman, because Brahman is the reality, consciousness is the reality, or existence awareness. So Ishvara is nothing but existence awareness with all knowledge, all power upadhi. So it's kind of like taking, again, going back to the crystal, you have the entire crystal, right, as though covered by an entire cloth. So there's not one part of that crystal that is free. It's just the whole thing's covered. So now from that standpoint, you will see the entire thing, the entire crystal as red. But it's not actually passed on its totality onto the crystal. Now Jiva is Brahman with five kosha upadhi. Both of them are Brahman. Ishvara is Brahman, Jiva is Brahman. Ishvara is Brahman because of the all knowledge, all power upadhi. Jiva is Brahman because of limited knowledge, limited power upadhi. That's it. It's just an upadhi. So again, going back to the crystal, it's like having the entire crystal, and then on one hand you have the entire cloth behind the crystal, on the other hand you have a little tiny cloth behind the crystal. Hey, why does it matter whether it's an entire cloth, Ishvara, or whether it is one cloth called Jiva? It's still a cloth. It's still an upadhi. Understand? Your nature is the crystal. You're that pure consciousness that is unaffected by the upadhi. And so for the time being, guess what? You just happen to be on the side of a small upadhi. For a time being. That's okay. We can act accordingly to that knowledge. We can still be happy, and we can still look at the big upadhi and say, oh Ishvara, help me. You know why? Because who's got all knowledge and all power? You or Ishvara? So obviously I'm not going to ask none other than that one who has all knowledge and all power. Because as a human being, The body and mind is still operating in this world, still going through aches and pains and diseases and financial issues, and still has to find meaning and purpose, and sometimes gets sidetracked and still has to come back, and family issues still arise. Yes, you still need help. That's why we don't stop praying. We continue to pray because we still need the help of the Lord. He's not your enemy. If He is there for you, let me develop a relationship with Him. Because who else is there for you than the Lord? Everyone else has abandoned you. Left a little mark, a trace, and that's called hurt or an impression, a deep scar. A deep scar. Now, why was there a deep scar formed? Because I did not listen to my inner calling, to my inner intuition. I got too fascinated in smaller upadis. Upadi girl, upadi boy, upadi toy, upadi money, upadi this. Not that anything's wrong with these upadi, it's just that I didn't have the right knowledge, but eventually the right knowledge comes to you. And when it does come to you, your responsibility now changes. Not that your life changes and what you do, it's not that you quit your job now when you go home. Everything remains the same. But in terms of how I interact with people, how I deal with people, that needs a follow-up, doesn't it? So therefore, is it just as easy just getting on the airport now and, again, I see this person, hey, can I get your passport, please? And they go, okay, passport. Yep. Thank you very much. Go. At least I can take 1 second to acknowledge the presence of Ishvara in them. That, just 1 second is enough to have this teaching ignite of its own. And I tell you, that's not easy, but that is your opportunity. Not at home even, but during those busy times when you are least going to apply it. That's where you most apply it. And maybe one day when speaking to someone that you love at home, maybe even for 1 second, recognize, instead of having that conversation being caught up with it, maybe you can recognize the awareness lighting up this mind is the same awareness lighting up your mind. Now let it go. 1 second, continue the conversation. It goes a long way. I have a good relationship with my father, and so we speak, about different things. And I thought, it's uncomfortable to do this with my dad. The awareness lighting up your mind is awareness lighting up my mind. And I said, let me do it. For once, because we're having a serious conversation. And I did it, just 1 second. And it felt a little bit uncomfortable at first. But then I said, why am I excluding you? Why is there always a character or a place or a time that we make exclusive? Huh? Now, on that one, I'm not going to apply it. All that is here is Ishvara, but on that one, I'm just going to continue my conversations as usual. So first time it was uncomfortable. But when I did it, I had the same lovely conversation with him. But I also felt a certain amount of breakthrough in me. That breakthrough? Like I've done something for the first time with a man that I've never done this before. It's not like I made a thought about him, but I simply used my memory to recall a teaching and bring it into a conversation. And that somehow changed my relationship with him. 1 second. So, now what we said about upadi is, if you want to understand what an upadi is, it's simple. It comes and goes. It changes. So, how have we demonstrated this with the Jiva? Well, we said the Pancha Koshas are the upadis, and we have recognized that your physical body, your subtle body, and your causal body, using that Anvaya Vyatireka method on the board, we have demonstrated that clearly that it comes and goes in different states. For example, the physical body went out in the dream state. The subtle body went out in the deep sleep state. Okay, so we have and the causal body, we had a little tricky one, because causal body remains in deep sleep. And how do we negate it? How do we call it Vyatireka, that which is variable, changing? What do we do? Do you remember? Remember, the causal body stayed and the purpose was to make it anvaya, that which is available. That which is available all the time is the self. But the causal body remained available throughout the deep sleep state also. So now we had to use a different kind of methodology to show that it's not available. Yes, of what? There was...
Anandamaya Kosha, and then Anandamaya depends on...
Good, because the Anandamaya Kosha went through Priya, Moda, Pramoda. It went through 3 modes. Happy, happier, happiest. Okay? So now...
How do you know it afterwards? So first you have to wake up?
See, the Anandamaya Kosha is, we can say it's part of the causal body. But there's another argument, Vidyaranya in Panchadashi, he would say no, Panchakosha is not necessarily in your causal body, it is just the subtlest layer of your mind. Okay? So now let's go with that teaching and make it even harder for us. So now we no longer have the Anandamaya Kosha as backup. So now we are stuck in a little problem here, that causal body doesn't leave your deep sleep. It doesn't leave the waking, it doesn't leave the dream, it doesn't leave the deep sleep. I have to show that it is negatable, and let's take away samadhi also, to make it even harder. So no samadhi. So how do I show this? Because only that which is anvaya, available, is the true self. If I can't get rid of the causal body, then that means that I am as good as my causal body.
It's changing, right?
Simple. Because anything that it is available, but available for how long? For a short amount of time. That means it has no absolute reality. Even just to experience one day, your causal body has already changed, because it is that which sustains your prarabdha karma. That which holds those situations that are, the unseen, punya and papam. Another way to describe it is, how is the causal body changing? It is full of impressions. Every single time you exercise your desire, you've just emptied it out of your causal body. And you can also equally starve off a desire. You're starving off a desire in the causal body, because a desire is nothing but a product of an impression, a samskara inside the causal body. So the causal body is changing every single day on the mere basis of personality. One day you are calm, next that's an impression, next day you're energetic, that's an impression, next day you are, a clown, that's an impression. These are all changes. So causal body goes from a clown into a calm person, into someone that's more introspective. These are all impressions. Causal body changes all the time. So yes, it is available, but it's changing, and anything that is changing cannot be the self. Otherwise I would be as good as that desire, which means that if I was the causal body, when the desire goes away, that's the causal body, when the desire goes away, what would happen? I would go away along with it, and there will be no one to report that the desire has gone away, because I would have gone right along with the desire. Simple. So, upadhi is that which comes and goes. Now, we have already done this inquiry with the jiva, the 3 bodies and the 3 states. Done. Then what about Ishvara? How do we demonstrate that Ishvara, which is also an upadhi, how do we demonstrate this? Well, to understand Ishvara, you have to understand it through 2 important teachings, which we haven't covered so far, but we have covered one of them. So we said that upadhi is that which borrows its attributes, as though borrows its attributes to something else. So I'll show an example. Okay, so the spot, right? It's as though borrowing attributes to the clay. Yeah. So the spot we call upadhi. So same thing, just different context. because the way that the Vedas works is, see, if I keep on saying one word, your brain gets too familiar with it and it starts to tune it out. So we keep on bugging you with new words to keep your mind sharp. That's the beauty of the teaching. That's why we have 1,000 names for the Lord. Why not just one? That's the beauty, that's the diversity of the teaching. So that's it's lovely that you even asked that, because we have multiple words. And now this is happening, we're engaging, and we want to engage. So it's all planned out, you see. Okay, so parinami upadana karanam. The first one, parinami upadana karanam, we said that Ishvara, always remaining intelligence, all knowledge and all power. That means it never gets exhausted. When it manifests the world of forms, it doesn't now suddenly forget how to build a tree because it built a tree. It still continues to build trees. And that tree you cut down, when you cut down a tree, have you cut down knowledge or have you cut down a form? Form. You see, if you cut down the knowledge, then the blueprint for all trees in the world gets wiped out. So you can't ever cut or divide knowledge. You can cut and divide forms. But you cut and divide a tree, and that tree, maybe you can take a axolotl, the little creature, which if you cut it, it regrows its limbs. An amazing little critter, huh? So now the tree can also do the same. You cut the branch. Why is the branch able to regrow again? Because it still holds the blueprint of knowledge. You can cut the entire universe into bits and pieces, and you have not touched. If that applies to the tree, which is an upadi, it applies to the entire upadi of the universe. Which is why we say what happens to the form doesn't happen to intelligence, doesn't happen to Ishvara. Therefore, what kind of material upadana karanam is Ishvara? It is parinami. It is reshuffling itself in the form of intelligence, but whatever it reshuffles into, it remains intelligence eternally. That means the intelligence that Ishvara is 1 billion to the power of infinite years ago is the exact same intelligence that it is right now. And pravaha nityatvam, definition number 2, is pravaha means, nityatvam means eternal flow. Eternal, what does this mean, eternal flow? It means that Ishvara is eternally going between manifest, unmanifest, manifest, unmanifest. For example, 5 minutes from now is unmanifest. 5 minutes comes, it's manifest. But then from that standpoint, the next 5 minutes is unmanifest, etc. And this moment now, unmanifest, replaced by this new moment. So Ishvara changes in 2 ways. One, it remains knowledge and power eternally, the same, all knowledge and all power. That means it never knows more suddenly. Suddenly it's now, oh, these guys are doing a little bit of a mess here. Let me rethink how to redo my universe next time. It's all knowledge. There will never be a moment when Ishvara gets some knowledge from an outside, from a different kind of Ishvara. It's all knowledge. Therefore, being all knowledge and reshuffling itself makes it upadi, because it is changing to account for the changes of the forms that are happening at this level here. For example, look at this. I'm going to make Ishvara now reshuffle itself, because all you're seeing and experiencing now is nothing but intelligence through the analysis. I drop. What just happened? You saw intelligence reshuffle itself, frame by frame, and who made it reshuffle itself? Intelligence in the form of Andre. So in other words, Ishvara is constantly reshuffling on the basis of itself telling itself what to reshuffle into itself, into some different form. Because there's only Ishvara.
Ishvara meaning or knowledge power, does it mean that all the universes are identical one after the other, or do they change according to the karmas of the jivas?
So what we do know is that every density, every world has a uniqueness about it. And the most unique world is this Bhuloka, Earth, in a sense that when you come here, everyone gets about a double ratio of 50-50 between punya and papam, at least a human being. So when you're born as a human being, nobody is perfectly a saint. Nobody. Just to be born a human being means you have about 50%, some qualities that are, unhealthy, and 50% qualities that are healthy. And it sort of displays this mixture. And then you have to use that and uplift yourself little by little through what we have here, very unique free will, choice, power of choice. So even if you come with more papam, now that 50-50, that's very unscientific, but suppose you come with more papam and you're still a human being, it doesn't matter. Though it's harder to uplift yourself because there's more propensity for engaging in those things that are unhealthy. That's why they argue free will. Well, if you've always done things before and you make a new choice, won't that new choice reflect that choice which you've done before? Yes, it will, but at the same time it won't. Because there was always a new situation demanding a new response. No situation repeats itself. And because it forces you to think again, it every single time draws a little bit of a difference out of your responses. You never ever do something twice. And so having this ability to make a choice, and the more you exercise that ability to make a choice, the easier it is to make a choice without being pulled by this impression and having it be the same choice as you've done before. So this is what we do. We get ourselves out of this impression that we come with. So it's not, no one's doomed. It's not late for anyone.
At the same time, with Babam is the best inspirator ever to get out of it.
At the same time, this world is the best place. The only place. The only place.
If you have in your personal life, there's a lot of Babam.
Yeah.
In the start, I would not be here if that would not have
Yeah.
happened to me.
Yeah. You see this?
So it's a blessing in disguise. It's stupid.
Yeah, and it's very little bit tricky because, not everyone comes with, people come with papam, but then that papam tends to take your thoughts in a certain direction. So it takes a very unique combination of that papam, where you're not born with, rich, religious family, born in a relatively educated family, and you have a certain amount of, educated parents. That's not the case for everyone. So you might be born in a family or a situation or a place that is not very rich or not very diverse or not very modern. And it's sort of, 1900s, old, and it's pulling you back. And you have just the right combination to make some observations and say, something needs to change. Now, why is it that you have made that observation and someone else was born in the same time, in the same family, also looked and it says, they don't see that. They just see, That's karma. That's karma. That means there was something about your impression that you have developed in the past life as a result of your hard work, aka punyam, which has now carried itself over, and finding myself in this environment, which may not be so conducive, you start to ask the right questions. And that very question gets you out of your papam. Okay? And so this is why we end up being in the situation that we are in, because of this punya-papa mixture. So, going back to this, it is a beautiful place. Now, other places, they are, according to the Vedas, they're different to accommodate different punya-papam levels. more or less. And so heaven, again, I said today, you don't necessarily have a physical body, so you're able to be a lot more, freer in your expression. And even if you do get a physical body, it's a lot subtler. So it doesn't really matter whether you get a physical body or not. The point is, it's not so heavy. You see, Earth is a very tricky place. Your subtle body is incredible. Huge amounts of potential the subtle body has. Incredible amount of potential to memorize and to recite. I don't know if maybe you remember as a child, I certainly remember, just able to create poetry like that, just automatically, in the dream, completely lucid, creating poetry, looking and going, this is amazing, go on. Memorizing, seeing things in front, like photographic memory. Everyone has that ability. But because of the physical brain, it pulls down your subtle body. Because physical brain is slow. Electricity has to flow through the neurons. It's a very slow, complex system based on dopamine release and food and oxygen. Stop breathing for 1 minute. What happens to the brain? Automatically, its ability reduces. So what happens? Because my subtle body is always pervading my physical body, you cannot truly express your true potential in a physical body because of the physical brain. That's how limiting it is to be in a human body. Perhaps this is why when there's an NDE experience, someone sees, and they say, I was so crystal clear, everything was just clear, I was so alert, they report. I was so alert. My body was down there and I didn't want to go back. I thought this is how it's supposed to be. And they're still talking about the subtle body. So the point is, I just want to show you that though there is an advantage here, it makes you rethink what's the real worth of coming back to Earth. It's highly limited to be here. And we are so accustomed to our deficiencies that we say, no, it's okay, I'll come back. But if you for a moment saw just the subtle body, I mean both are bodies anyway, but just the subtle body for a moment, you'd be like, no way, no thank you. But the trick now is, if you don't want to come back here, you're really saying no to moksha, because this is really the only place for moksha. So no matter what you do, if you don't want to come back, you can't get moksha. If you want to come back, you can get moksha, but you're highly limited in all capacities. In other words, what I want to show is whatever loka you go to, whether heaven or Brahma loka or whatever, you can't win this game of samsara. You can't win here. Nor can you lose. It's just going around. Every single travel has a pro and con. And then when a person sees this clearly, it just doesn't make sense to want to return. And that's exactly what the scriptures wants to show you, to turn you off, not in a bad way, but just to show you the dosha, the limitations. Remember what dispassion means? Seeing the limitations on and on until it's crystal clear. Yes, it's a beautiful life, but you know what? How many times have I lived life like this? How many times? Infinite. And here I am, one more life protecting. I want to protect this human body. I like this experience. You see how it's almost immature to do that? So this means the person was a king, a queen, a brother, a sister, the wealthiest in the world, was everything you can possibly imagine based on this karmic model. And now they get reborn and they say, I like it here. And how many lives took place where you said, my God, I don't want to do this anymore? Now, of course, death, there's amnesia, and then you wake up going, hey, that's so good, now I want to live again. So one life comes and you finally just discern. That's called Viveka. You discern the limitations, no matter how you look at it, whether it is sexual intercourse, whether it is food, whether it is any kind of pleasure, it is not worth it. It's limited. And the person has to see this.
Andre, could it be that one who is born with a lot of punya karma has less urge to search for liberation?
Look at this, this is another good point. Now, if you come with a lot of punyam, everything's working out, you're born with a lovely, family and privileges and so on. What is there to pursue? Why? Life is beautiful. So even if you come with a lot of punyam, you still can't win the game. If you come with a lot of papam, things are not easy. Which way do you want it? Because no matter which way you say, the results are the same. The only conclusion is this: limitations are obvious. And because they are so obvious and so persistent, this is not a place for me.
But this conversation, like this dialogue, is really just for the Jiva, right?
Yeah, to the Jiva. The Jiva who's holding on to the Jiva hood.
Yeah.
Jiva Tvam.
If you reach moksha, you're basically just eliminating the koshas.
Yes,
It all just resolves back into something where there's no question anymore.
yeah, exactly. And who wants to travel? The koshas want to travel. So when you negate the koshas, there's no travel.
Yes.
That's the only one that wants to actually gain something in this
And
universe.
there's no question at all in the end.
No, there's no question. Then you can still have a dialogue, but it doesn't affect you.
I was missing something there.
Good, good.
So I think Otto's question asking if someone has a lot of punya and have a really good life and they don't mind coming back again.
Yeah.
Are you saying that they will just come back again and again and again, but maybe the 1000th life, it may not be so lucky?
Exactly, because when you reach your 60s, suppose someone's had lots of punyam, and suddenly that punyam exhausts itself, as it does. And then they go into a midlife crisis. And now, in contrast to all of the great life that I've lived, this kind of life, 60 onwards, I don't want to live this. And so I become grumpy, I become rude, I become impatient, and now all of those behaviors start to generate papam. So now that papam, I take next life. So this means the person of Viveka neither wants punyam nor wants papam. They're both. Punyam is basically a gold chain. I'm held down by a gold chain. Oh, I've got a gold chain. Look. And the unwise, who's got papam, is held down by a rusty chain. They're both chains. So this is the essence of dispassion. It's not being turned off from the world and hating the world. It's not aversion. It's just seeing that when there is a superimposition, you cannot win the game. You're just playing, a game of cat and mouse or hamster wheel, getting nowhere. So the person finally says, okay, thank you, Ishvara. I've lived every life, I may not remember it, but I've lived every possible life. And I was proud. I said, you look at my kingdom, look at my big house, look at my family. And I've been doing that for hundreds of lifetimes. And what did I get from all of that? A new birth.
For free.
Yeah. A new birth going, help me. And then Ishvara does eventually help you. The only being who helps you, in a form of the scriptures, in a form of the guru, finally helps you. So hopefully I'm demonstrating what it means to live a life of a human being. You see, because we are holding on to the humanhood, and that holding on can detract from moksha, from that motivation to be dedicated and to be committed. It really does. Now the beauty of this is, once you understand who you are, then everything is so much easier. The irony is now life truly becomes enjoyable because I have no more pressures to be someone, to have to constantly improve and become a better person for someone else. You're just finally, for the first time ever, you know how all the self-help books say, just accept yourself. How can I possibly accept a limited self? Never. Now, for the first time ever, I can do that. And I can be okay with my dosha's defects. And I don't have to worry about criticism and praise anymore. It has no effect whatsoever. Don't even say your praise. Don't even bother with your criticism. It has no effect because you're talking to an upadi.
A few days ago you talked about how the knowledge and the heart has to merge together.
Yeah.
That is after moksha, you mean?
No, even before. That's the standard journey of a human being. Yeah. And also after moksha, of course, that journey, because you've begun this journey a long time ago, so your impressions are going to make you continue that.
So change will happen, but the pressure is gone.
The pressure is gone. See, even after moksha, the person can still be, unpleasant, but they won't be reborn.
Yes.
But because most are sincere, to come here, you must have already gone through teachers and, a life experience. Most people are sincere and they want to do the best they can. So naturally, you would want to do and continue out of a mere habit of having done it before. So the journey really never ends for the human being. So it doesn't mean now that the person, who knows their nature, and you go and continue improving, it means that you're ignorant. It doesn't mean that. It just means, okay, tell me, what else are you going to do then? Right? Of course, you're going to do your duty and do your things in the world. But see, progression, evolution is a natural, healthy aspect of life.
Yeah, only the pressure is taken out.
Only the pressure that I have to become someone, to be recognized, to be someone. This is gone completely. And it's not completely gone instantly. It takes several more years after moksha for this to go, because of what we call deha vasana or manaha vasana. Okay, a vasana that I'm still the mind is still identified, not I, but the mind is still identified with that I need to be somebody. It's still there. And so this slowly starts to reduce as you continue your doubt clarification and re-listening to Vedanta again and again and again. So the journey continues.
I was thinking about the causal body. It's impossible. You're not going to empty it.
No, never.
And then, but it's gonna be more attached to the jiva then when you become wise.
Become wise. Funny one. So the causal body will never end, and the amount of sanchita that you have, that means all the past causes. See, here's the logic, without just saying it. Since when was the jiva born? Beginning of time. Since when has the jiva been doing actions? So therefore, how big is the jiva's account of punya papam that is yet to come out? Infinite. So this means, and your causal body now in this life is just like one little dot of that infinite that's waiting for you. So, no, it's never going to empty. So what happens upon moksha is simply, I don't identify with the causal body anymore. I don't identify with the doer who is responsible and who has received that punya papam. That wasn't me to begin with. So therefore, I can't gain a new body, because that which gains a new body is the causal body. That which produces a new body is the causal body. Your past causes. I'm so sorry, I need to come back and finish my business. That mistake. You realize that was Andre. That was Eliami. That wasn't self. Self had no connection, asanga, relationshipless.
So after moksha, no attachments left. or they are attachments, because we still need to work on ourselves.
And there is an attachment definitely because of Dehavasana.
Yes.
Okay.
So how then it's possible, not possible to come back?
Because what's still attached, the mind is. But I've recognized that I have no connection to that mind that is attached to other things. That's why. So the mind will continue to be attached to children and parents and partner, but recognition is I am not that mind that's being attached. Now you don't use that as an excuse. This is not what we're speaking of. It's just a genuine understanding that I can perform my duties and my work in this world, but this is all happening of the character, a fictional character, a projection of Maya, who's just moving this character and going da-da-da-da-da-da-da, speaking according to its past causes. Yeah.
The context, all the questions are being asked after moksha, right? Is the moksha, is the clarity of knowledge? Is that what you're defining as moksha?
Yeah, moksha is much, to let go of false ideas that are not true about reality.
So when we say after moksha, what does exactly mean?
I've let go of the false conclusion that self, I, Atma, Brahman, am as good as these 5 koshas. I've let that go. That was not true. It's like the spot, maybe some more visual. It's like the spot has finally let go of the idea that it is an individual form. It's let go. It's now shifted its identity to that which it always was.
So it's not just the clarity and understanding, but it's to make the claim that...
Yes. You've owned up. You got persuaded. You know that moment when a salesman is trying to sell you something? And you're like, yeah, no, I see the benefits, but you're not quite connecting. And the salesman keeps on trying. And what is that moment when you finally say, okay, I see your point, I want it. You see that moment from no to yes, it's instant. That means you finally drop that last moment of mind, that resistance, that last notion of resistance. It was wiped out thanks to the salesman. And now you say, yes, I want it. Same thing here. The mind was resisting it for such a long time, and all we're really doing is we're just persuading the mind. And persuasion is nothing but introducing right ideas that are consistent with reality. And those right ideas are removing your no, yeah, it's fine. No, I'm removing all of that until finally you make that effortless claim. That which was there all along, just like that pen, which I always knew about, that is it. That's what the Upanishads are talking about. And I have it. I'm not away from it. It's obvious. Awareness is in every single thought. Was that? So I was giving it this idea that it's a level of consciousness, level of some superior enlightened awareness. I thought it was levels, but it was just pointing me, it's this awareness that is always known to me all the time, at all times. That's it. Okay. So that means you've owned up, your mind has stopped resisting that awareness is an object. All this time, it was turning it into some notion.
Is it possible to have buyer's remorse?
No, because see, buyer's remorse implies you've gained something new. Okay, so once you buy something, okay, and then you get to know it, then you go, it's limited, right? It doesn't have what I really wanted. But you are limitless. You cannot regret that which is limitless, that which is infinite. Therefore, not possible.
So
yeah.
The Guru is selling something that we already have.
Essentially. The Guru is selling something you already have. Yeah.
That's why it's free.
Yeah, that's why it's free. Yeah.
Therefore,
That's a good.
Guru must be a very good seller.
A Guru must be a good seller. Yeah. In a sense, the Guru is the persuader, just getting you to buy this idea by removing your notions.
Knowledge is either absolute or not. So in order to get moksha, you need to have that aha moment in your life. that everything is as you say is, that aha moment has to happen. So all we have studied, like we've studied the same thing, every one of us. So would all of us go to moksha, or we need to have that moment upon which we will get moksha?
No, it's not an individual collective event. It's not a universal event. It's always an individual mind to mind basis. Because right, one person may see the snake, another person doesn't see the snake, they see the rope. So it's not like everyone's ignorant here. There are people who recognize the reality and they have taken the hard work to come to that place. So because everyone's journey is individual, you have to figure it out for yourself. Yeah. So this is good because, see, it would not be fair if it's just sort of, I can go out there and cheat and, break everything. And it's just, I just get the same infinite rewards as those who have sincerely worked hard for this journey. So the system is set up in such that, you're giving all the privileges in the world and you just have to work for it. That's why we say grace is earned.
And sorry, can I just ask a question? Because you mentioned aha moment. It doesn't quite work like that either, does it? Like a sudden enlightenment.
Yeah,
it's slow removal of information.
Well, okay, but good. See, that's called growing clarity. So until moksha, it's called aha. It's a growing clarity. You're realizing little by little that I am not, the kosha, I'm not these thoughts. So it is a constant growing clarity. Now, you could say that moksha is, is a big aha, but there's no more ahas afterwards. So what he means by aha, what he might mean by aha, is that like we said, it is an owning up. It's an owning up that I already have it. Not as an object, but I am that very reality. So when that moment happens, which we'll talk about, it's called akandakara vrati or brahmakara vrati. From then on, you can never go back. And you can call it this big aha. But let's not imagine it's some kind of, because the mind loves to imagine. It's just a simple recognition. Oh, okay, cool. Continue with my work here, right? Simple. It's not some big event that we imagine it to be, because you haven't gained anything new. You knew about it all along.
That also sometimes there is a possibility you will not got it, the moksha. You will feel that something changed, that everything is better, life is easier and all these things, but you will need time to realize that actually this is, because you're living it already. See, until moksha, they say lights are going on and off. I had it yesterday, now it's not there. That's not moksha, by the way. Moksha is not, I've had a oneness experience yesterday and today I forgot. That's not. Moksha is just, once that thought, akandakara vritti, happens, which we'll talk about, from that moment it's impossible to ever be uncertain or have any doubts whatsoever about your nature. From that moment on, every saint that you've ever worshipped, the Buddhas and the Ramanas and so on, they have no bearing. It's like, okay, cool, you know exactly what I know. Before, there were like these big giants. Because what does the Buddha have that I don't have? It's just one awareness pervading his mind, one awareness pervading this mind. It's not a way.
Can I say the understanding can deepen, but the recognition is at one point?
Yes. So the recognition is one-off, but the nuances, the maturity of the mind, that deepens. Who you are doesn't deepen, because you're already infinite. So once there's a recognition of the infinite, that's it. But the nuances as to what we call, which we'll get to, tripti, the satisfaction, the byproduct, the emotional bhakti that comes through, how much I see and appreciate Ishvara in life, that continues.
And that's the work. That's why in Vedanta we say there is no jnanam without bhakti. If it's just knowledge, it's incomplete. If it's just bhakti, it's incomplete. Because if it's just devotion, what am I devoting to? I'm a little being devoting to some big thing over there. So you need to add knowledge to bhakti to recognize Tat Tvam Asi. There is no essential difference between the devotee and the devoted, the worshipper and the worshipped. And so you combine knowledge and bhakti together, and that ends up being a full, rich life. Therefore, we are not just about self-knowledge. Self-knowledge, the byproduct of self-knowledge, with a healthy mind, performed by a healthy mind, is bhakti. So you end up being the biggest worshipper of the Lord. Even more than before, which is quite ironic. You thought, oh, now, I'm above Brahman. Not at all. Bhakti is a natural expression of your nature. Because you're only ever loving yourself. You see, I love my hand. I love it because why? It's attached to the body. So I love my hand. So so to love is to worship, right? I love my hand. Your hand, right? Your hand, because it's not my hand. So this means that as long as I still worship my own little body here, my own little hand, it shows me that my identity stops at the edges of the body. So to become a bhakta, an appreciator of Ishvara's intelligence all around, shows you directly that I'm seeing much further. My buddhi is seeing much further than beyond the edges of this body. It's reaching out and appreciating Ishvara. So Advaita Vedanta is not about telling you go and worship. It's just letting you know the byproduct of firm knowledge is innocent bhakti. Now, sometimes you might be born in a culture that doesn't have this bhakti. This is called the Western culture. The India is fantastic at this. Now, if you are born in that Western culture, then you have to take some initiative to bring bhakti. Because I know many people in the West, and they complain. This is the common, it's not a complaint, this is a desire. I want to feel it. I want to experience it. I want to bring it into my life. I want to have that, what they're really saying is I want emotion, to actually feel it. I want sweetness in my life. This is completely valid. And the reason why they're asking that is because they're missing forms of rituals, forms of bhakti, forms of expressions, forms of having a goddess or a god to relate with. Remember, your mind needs a figure to relate to. And when you relate to with a figure, it deepens your knowledge. It doesn't disqualify your knowledge, it deepens your knowledge. Because now you know what I'm really relating to is the one, the self. But to deepen that, you need the help of Ishvara in the form of that object. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.